Round the World Lit Audio. The Stranger by Albert Camus. Part 1. Chapter 3. Full narration script. Channel intro. Welcome to Around the World Lit Audio, the greatest novels ever written, from every corner of the world, in English. New chapter every week, free to listen. Chapter recap. In Chapter 1, Meursault's mother died. He attended her funeral in the heat of the Algerian summer, and felt nothing he was expected to feel. In Chapter 2, he went swimming the next day, met Marie Cardona, went to a comedy film, slept with her, spent Sunday on his balcony watching the street, and went back to work on Monday. Nothing had changed, really. Part 1. Chapter 3. Chapter 3. He ran into his neighbor Raymond Sintes on the stairs. Raymond was a man of medium height with thick shoulders, and the particular build of someone who has been in physical confrontations, and has not always come off worse. He worked as a warehouse guard, though there was a rumor in the building, the kind of rumor that attaches itself to certain people and cannot quite be dislodged, that he actually made his living as a pimp. Raymond himself never addressed the rumor directly. He had the relaxed manner of a man who does not feel the need to explain himself to anyone. He said, "I have been meaning to talk to you." Meursault said, "All right." Raymond invited him up for dinner. He had some blood sausage and wine. Meursault accepted because he had no particular reason not to. They ate. Raymond talked. He talked about his situation, about a woman he had been keeping, a Moorish woman who had, in his view, been unfaithful to him. He had discovered this and had beaten her. Now he felt that beating her had not been sufficient, that something further was required, something that would cause her more lasting damage than a physical punishment. He wanted to write her a letter that would first draw her back in and then hurt her as badly as possible. He looked at Meursault across the dinner table with the expression of a man who has decided to trust someone, and is curious what they will do with that trust. He said, "I am not a good writer. You seem like a man who understands these things. Would you write the letter for me?" Meursault thought about it. He said, "It does not matter to me, but if you want to hurt her the way you describe, I can probably write something that will do it." Raymond seemed satisfied with this. He said, "That is exactly what I need. Someone who understands the situation and can put it in the right words." Meursault wrote the letter that evening at Raymond's table. It was not a difficult letter to write. He had been told what was needed and he produced it. The letter opened with warmth, with the language of reconciliation, of a man who missed the woman and wanted her back. Then, gradually, it shifted. It introduced doubt. It introduced the specific details of her infidelity, presented in a way that would cause maximum damage to her self-regard. It ended with the kind of contempt that is most effective when it arrives after affection, because by then the reader has been made to care again, and the contempt lands harder. Meursault read it back to Raymond. Raymond was pleased. He said, "Yes, that is exactly it. That is exactly what I wanted." They finished the wine. Meursault went back downstairs. He did not think about the letter again that evening. It had been a task. He had completed it. He lay on his bed in the warm night, and listened to the sounds of the building and fell asleep. The next day he told Marie about Raymond. Marie said, "That man is dangerous." Meursault said, "Perhaps." Marie said, "And you wrote that letter for him?" Meursault said, "Yes." Marie was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You are strange." Meursault said, "Perhaps." He did not say it defensively. He said it in the tone of a man considering a description that may or may not be accurate, and finding it interesting rather than troubling. A few weeks passed. On a Saturday morning Meursault heard shouting from Raymond's apartment, a woman's voice and Raymond's voice, and then the sound of a blow, and then the woman crying, and then silence, and then more blows. Several other residents gathered on the landing. Someone called the police. A policeman arrived. He spoke to Raymond through the door. Raymond opened it. The woman, the Moorish woman, the one from the letter, was standing in the corner of the room with her face marked. The policeman looked at her. He looked at Raymond. He asked Raymond for his papers. Then the policeman did something that surprised everyone watching. He told Raymond to take a cigarette out of his pocket and put it in his mouth. Raymond did this. The policeman slapped him across the face. He said, "There is the lesson, you pimp. You will learn to treat women with respect." Raymond said nothing. His expression did not change. He held the cigarette in his mouth. The policeman told him he would be summoned to the police station, and to have his papers in order. Then the policeman left. The woman left with him, or shortly after him. She disappeared down the stairs with her marked face and her particular silence. Raymond closed his door. Later that afternoon he knocked on Meursault's door, and asked if he wanted to go for a walk. Meursault said yes. They walked through the neighborhood in the afternoon sun, past the shops and the cafes and the particular afternoon crowd of a Saturday in Algiers. Raymond seemed entirely recovered. He talked about various things, about the police, about the woman, about what he planned to do next, with the forward-looking practicality of a man who does not spend much time with what has already happened. Meursault walked beside him and said little, and felt the afternoon sun on his face, and found, as he usually did, that the physical facts of the moment were sufficient occupation for his attention. Raymond said, "I know some people who have a beach house, a bungalow near Algiers. They have said I can use it any time. Would you and your woman like to come one Sunday?" Meursault said, "I will ask Marie." He asked Marie. Marie said yes immediately, with the uncomplicated enthusiasm of someone who likes the beach, and finds that sufficient reason for most things. She asked, "Who is this Raymond?" Meursault said, "A neighbor." She said, "Is he a good person?" Meursault said, "I don't know. He is my neighbor." This was, for Meursault, a complete answer. Whether Raymond was good or bad was a question that required a kind of moral assessment that Meursault did not particularly perform. Raymond existed. He was a neighbor. He had invited them to the beach. These were the relevant facts. Around this time Meursault noticed old Salamano again. Salamano was the man from the floor above, the small, bitter man, who had owned the spaniel for 8 years, who walked the dog in the evenings, who beat it and dragged it, and was inseparable from it, in the way that people are sometimes inseparable from the things that make them unhappy. One evening Meursault heard something outside on the landing. He opened his door and found Salamano, alone, shaking, his eyes red. The dog was gone. He had lost it near the parade ground. He had looked everywhere. He could not find it. Meursault said, "It will come back." Salamano said, "They will take it to the pound. I do not have the money to get it back. The fees are very high." He stood on the landing and shook. Meursault said, "Come in for a moment." Salamano came in. He sat. He told Meursault about the dog, about how he had got it after his wife died, 8 years ago, because the house was empty, and the dog filled it, and then somehow the relationship between them had become what it had become, the hatred and the dependency, the beatings and the inability to be apart. He said, "People used to say to me, 'You have a dog that looks just like you.' We were together for 8 years. Can you imagine 8 years? Meursault said, "Yes." Salamano said nothing more for a while. Then he left. Meursault lay in his bed and thought, briefly, about his mother, not with grief, simply with the thought that arose naturally from what Salamano had said, about living with someone for years and then they are gone. His mother had lived in the home for the past 3 years. Before that she had lived here, with him. There had been a time when she had filled a space the way Salamano's wife had filled a space. He thought, she used to say that in the end one gets used to everything. He was not sure whether this was comforting or simply true. He fell asleep before he decided. Chapter Transition. You have reached the end of Part 1, Chapter 3 of The Stranger, by Albert Camus. In Chapter 4, Meursault, Marie, and Raymond take the tram to the beach. The Sunday has the warm, easy quality of a good day, swimming, sun, lunch, wine. But Raymond's Moorish enemies have followed him. On the beach, in the blinding afternoon heat, things begin to move toward a conclusion that no one has planned for and no one can stop. Chapter 4 is available next week. Subscribe to Around the World Lit Audio so you never miss a chapter. A new chapter arrives every week.